So the first step with the bear cap with the rails mounted as you see here, if you want to make a mark to locate the front and rear crossbars. So at the rear of the crossbar, or the rear of the rail here, you want to measure 4 inches and just make a small mark at 4 inches. That's from the end of the aluminum rail. So 4 inches from the rear and 8 3/4 from the front. You make those on the side of the rail that's toward the center of the cap, so you'll never see that little mark. Do that on all 4 corners. All right, so this is best with a two people. Lift the rear cross member, as you see here, up onto the rails, and there's a stainless steel nut inside each rail that you take a 5/16 by 3/4 inch stainless bolt and bolt right through the foot of the cross member into the stainless steel nut that's in the rail, and line it up with your 4-inch mark that we just made, and then just snug it up hand tight for now. The next step is to install this drive shaft, or connecting rod as it's called, and it slides onto this shaft here on the outside of it. You'll notice the shaft has a few marks on it. This is because this particular rack has been assembled before and we took it apart to do this demonstration. So slide it onto the shaft. You've got to just work it down the shaft until it lines up with the holes that you see here. There's 2 sets of holes. And just drop a bolt in to locate it for the time being, just so it won't move on you. So the forward cross member, similar to the rear, except we need to slide it into that connecting bar, sort of like this one slid onto the rear. So work from this side and have somebody on the far side just taking the weight of the crossbar, because it needs to slide in all the way until this set of holes lines up, and so that the front of this crossbar is at the 8 3/4 mark that we made earlier. So at this point, I'm lined up with this mark, my holes line up here, and the far side also lines up with the 8 3/4 mark. All right, so now the cross member's in place and our drive shaft's in place, so we're gonna bolt this foot down. If the little nut in there doesn't totally align with the bolt you're trying to drop into it, you can use a small screwdriver just to give it a nudge and locate it to where it needs to be. And there you go, you'll find the center of it. Once again, snug it hand tight, and then drop the 2-inch stainless bolts into the 4 holes on the drive shaft, like so. 2 at the front, 2 at the rear. Secure them with the washers that have a rubber grommet on the washer to prevent water from entering, and a nylock nut on both of them. So I'm not going to tighten these up in the video, but this is just showing the concept. And then, yeah, 2 more bolts on these 3 holes. Sometimes you got to spin them to get them to go into the hole there. Using a ratchet end wrench helps, or an impact gun if you're careful. And then put the washer and nut onto the threads on all of them and snug them up. So when those are tight, then you can go around to the 4 bolts that have bolted down between the foot and the rail. Make sure that your position's good. There's my 4-inch mark that I made earlier. Make sure it's centered on the rail, and at that point you can tighten it down. Good and snug, and it's got a spring lock washer underneath the bolt, so it's never going to come loose. Same with the other 3 the next step is to install a pair of hooks that actually retains the ladder on this ladder rack. These are extra tall hooks. So there's 2 hooks, and first thing you want to do is measure from the end of the upper crossbar to 23 inches. Make a mark there at 23. And then your hook, like you see it here, will slide over the crossbar and put your clamp right at 23 inches there and snug it up in that position. The other hook is a totally different hook, and it goes underneath this crossbar. So this little stainless part here, actually if you can see this up close, if this is underneath the crossbar, you'll see an angled portion. So line that up with the angle in this hook, get that in there, and then this little notches into the cross member, and you can slide it in just like that, and it'll stay under its own support, and then the bolt comes in from below into that little stainless steel part. I just want to show how the this side of this post will align with the inside of this hook, and what that's doing is making sure that it totally retains one whole rail of the ladder, so the ladder can never come out of this hook system. And once you've got it in that position, you can snug it up by hand and then tighten up that bolt, and then just double check that all your bolts 1, 2, and 3 are tight, and then those hooks are fully installed. And do the exact same process on the rear cross member as well. The same pair of hooks will be secured in the same position, 23 inches to this clamp, and then the outside of this post aligns with the edge of the hook, as you see here. So the ladder rack that is installed here, as you see it, is an earlier version than some of the ones that are going to be installed on these caps. The manufacturer of this ladder rack has actually upgraded the rack and changed it slightly from this design. So the posts will be mounted in the exact same process, or should I say the hooks will be mounted in the exact same process, but they'll be mounted actually on this rail here instead of this rail here. So the whole process applies, but the actual position of where it mounts may be slightly different. So a few final details. Once the drive shaft is connected and bolted together, we just want to make sure that we prevent any water from getting inside this drive shaft. So you'll see there's the open holes here, of which there's 4, and then there's where the smaller tube inserts into the larger one. So just want to clean off the shaft with some cleaner, some degreaser, rubbing alcohol or something like that works great. And then you'll be provided with the ladder rack with a strip of these white stickers. So you only need 4 of them, but you want to use those to put them over the open holes that remain after the unit's assembled. So they cover those holes, prevent moisture from getting in. So that's the 4 of those. And then where the smaller tube inserts into the larger one, we find it best practice to put a small bead of white silicone around that join. So just make a nice clean job of that. Then just clean it up so it looks nice and tidy. And do that on both ends, so the front and the rear of this drive shaft connector. And that's it, you're all done.